Postpartum bleeding. So everybody has postpartum bleeding, whether you had a vaginal delivery or a C-section, everybody is going to have this. Now, it sounds kind of bad, but during a C-section, they do scoop out your uterus, and so you may kind of have less bleeding with a C-section than a vaginal delivery, but everybody is going to have bleeding postpartum. Bleeding occurs from where your placenta was attached to your uterus, and so since everyone had a placenta and a uterus, everyone's going to be bleeding. Now, that spot is going to heal, and sometimes about 2 to 4 weeks after you have your baby, you may have a little bit more bleeding, and this is just from where that spot has healed and scabbed over, and that scab has came off. So if you have one time of like going to the bathroom, this happened, maybe a small clot that happens with it, that's going to be normal. If it continues to happen, you have large blood clots, then we'd want to know about that. The kind of golden thing that we look at is if you are going through a pad an hour or having clots bigger than golf ball size, we're gonna wanna know. Sometimes you get up and you're overdo it and you may have more bleeding, and that's an indication your body letting you know you need to be taking it easier. Sometimes if you're sitting in bed for a while and you go and you stand up, from where that blood was sitting and pooling in your vagina, you may develop a clot and then get up and move and that clot comes out. That may be normal. Now, if you're having clots bigger than golf ball size, I've had clots as big as like a football size, liver size clots. They are kind of intense. But if you're having clots bigger than golf ball size, then we'd want to know about it. It is pretty normal also to have like a little string of clots, if you will. So if that happens to you, that's normal as well. So everybody's bleeding postpartum can look a little different, and each postpartum period can look a little different as well, but this is just the general rule of thumb that you will see. Those first 4 days is going to be bleeding like a period. Now, I know you haven't had a period in a while. If you've been pregnant, most moms don't have bleeding during pregnancy, but it's going to be like you're on a period. And with this, sometimes if you increase your activities doing too much, that bleeding may pick up. I've attached a grid picture in here for you that kind of breaks this down for you as a reference if you're more of a visual person. And also the 5 rule I think is really helpful as well, to just kind of slowly increase your activities and not overdoing it. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself postpartum and healing, is to just listen to your body and really try not to overdo it. So those first 4 days, your bleeding is going to be like a period. It's going to be bright red blood like you would typically see with a period. Now, at any point in time, if your bleeding goes from what we're going to talk about in a second, darker blood to like a brownish yellow color to white mucousy color to all of a sudden that bright red blood again, we'd want to know about it. The bright red blood means that that's new blood, and if you all of a sudden are healing and then having that bright red blood again, then we're going to be concerned about that. After those first 4 days, for the next like week or so, you're going to have a darker blood, and like I talked about, that's just older blood. And then for the next week or so, it's going to be even darker red. And then for the next 3 to 6 weeks, it's going to be a light brown to even like a yellow color or a white mucousy color. Some women, this is just annoying and you wear painting liners. Some women, they don't bleed the whole 6 weeks. Like I said, some of them do, and everybody's postpartum period is going to be a little different. But if you do overdo it, it is going to increase your bleeding time. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So if you start bleeding through a pad an hour, and this includes going home, if you all of a sudden are having bright red blood, it's gushing, go ahead and get to an emergency room. A postpartum hemorrhage can happen at any point in time, even when you go home. If you have any kind of foul odors, any kind of burning sensation, fevers, those are indications that you have an infection happening. And you can have an infection that's not necessarily from the stitches that you had if you like tore from a vaginal delivery, not necessarily if you had a C-section from the incision. It can actually be your uterus that has an infection. So everybody's at risk for this. So any kind of foul odors, fevers, things like that, we definitely want you to be seen for. All right, so we're next going to talk about peeing postpartum.